All right, we're back. We're looking at the pattern stack for the 5 string. Now notice it's 5 strings, but it's actually 10 long. That's so we can have start to start again, so we know how this pattern starts itself over again. So we put the root up there for shape fitting. And then we also have, you can start it anywhere. Say you start on 6, you got a 6, 3, root, 5, 2. That'll be your 5 strings. So it has to be long enough to start on root again. Just for clarity, both first and the last posts in the fence, just for structure. So that's why we have it this long. And again, we have short, long, long, short, short, long. We have the 1, 2, 3, then short, long, long, short, and then back to the 1, 2, 3. And this is an interesting little um, shape. There is that 3, 5 root. So it's okay. So that's the scale. That's the diatonic. No matter where you start this scale and finish on another, you're going to be looking at 2 whole steps, 2 half steps, and 3 whole steps, or whatever a scale has. 1, 2 whole steps, a half step, a whole step, a whole step, so 4 whole steps and a half step, something like that. No matter where you start, you're going to be running into the same number of half steps, whole steps in that scale. That's good, but that's not what I was after. What I'm after is those chords, the chords on the cage. So let's look over here, and I have here the word in big letters, caged, right? B5 cello, star, asterisk, only, if and only if the capo and the bar is on the 3rd E note. Well, guess what? Cello is on the C note, right? Violin is on the G note. So we would have to put Mr. Capo on, and we can't do this with. You can't do this with a violin, I don't think. But for teaching purposes, now it's caged. Now this is C. Okay. So I'm saying root instead of being root. Now remember, root in this cage that we're looking at, 1, 4, 5 cage, diatonic playaways and short barred. Why do I say diatonic playaways? Because I added this for playaway. So if we start on 3 here, here's 3. That's an E. It's supposed to be an E. Okay, it's a little out of tune, but that's what it is. Then this is the diatonic scale. 3, 4, 5, 5, 6. Double string shape. So that's why I want to list these guys just to make sure. But when we go to make chords and we go to look at chords, we're only going to look at a handful of notes. Like I'm not Will Chamberlain here, I'm not like Mulgrew Miller. Mulgrew Miller, the ragtime player from down south. Rest his soul. Um, but they're all still alive in the spirit, right? Spirit of their music, the spirit of their giving to the world their music. So anyway, but for my hand size, I'm looking at about 4 frets here. Okay, so we're looking at making chords out of this. So out of here, I've come down here, and now I've darkened the 2nd, the 6th, and the 4th and the 7th. These are not going to be used in chords, just the 3rd, the 5th, and the root. 3rd, the 5th, and the root. Come over here, 3rd, the 5th, and the root. 3rd, the 5th, and the root. In the A shape. In the A shape. Remember from caged? So this is the crux of what are we doing here when we want caged on cello violin. Remember the cage? C shape, C. 3rd, 5th, and root. Well, here's root, root 3, root 3, 5. Right there. Okay, then we come over here. We've got 5, root 3, A shape. Same thing. So we go to A shape, we're going to play the same thing, essentially root 3/5 in some sort of order, the best we can get. And then, you know, once you're comfortable with that chord, you decide, okay, well, I know what that chord is. It's like that. If I want to arpeggiate up there, you know, I'm going to use that chord. If my melody goes up that way, and you know, that kind of thing. That's ear training and everything, use of chords. But this is defining the chords. Well, here's what we got to work with. Now, what makes it interesting is you go back over here and you say, let's say we're in the E box right over here, okay? So we have E shaped, A shaped, C shaped. Well, guess what? That A is the fourth. It's going to be 4, 6 root, right? So let's look at that A shape as root 3/5 is going to be here. It looks like this thing looks like the Little Dipper here. 5, 3, root 5. Well, look at the A shape 4, 6 root. We've got, where's that start? Well, right here, root 6, 4 root. Same exact shape. See what I'm saying? 5, 3, here's a cross whole step. So up there, that's a fifth and then a sixth. Here we go, root to the sixth. You see, it's the same shape. By substitution, we've got the same shape. So we're not just limited to root 3/5, okay? Because root 3/5 over here. So once we learn the E shape, which is very interesting shape to learn, because guess what? The E shape starts on root there. Here's our fret nut. Here's our fret nut. Or you could call it a finger bar if you're going to do this in any key up here somewhere. But down here would be our fret nut. Root 5, 3, root 5. Sounds like a clock. Okay, so that is our root shape, E shape. When we want to go to the A shape there, we're going to be looking at 4, 6 root. Okay, so let's look at what we've got. We've got root 6, 4 there. And then we've got 5, 3 root, same shape. You can always take it up one whole step. Okay? Now I have a little note here to myself, but we'll talk about it. Try playing the chords away from the fret nut. Remember I said it could be a finger bar. To see if the bar should be moved to the left below the root fret nut as with guitar E, A, C. What am I talking about? I'm talking about this. Here's E, here's A shape, E shape, A shape, even though this is C, F. Okay, then the C shape doesn't have enough room. Half of it, where do we put the C? It's gone. It's in music box land. So you see, if you play it up here on the bar, you know, see how this went down below the bar, below the finger bar. We want to be wary, you know, looking for, cautious to recognize that same effect happening on the cello guitar, but I haven't found it yet. I haven't confounded it yet. You know, but so everything seems to be in order. So if we look at the cage chords, we have root 3/5 in the C shape. Okay, now remember, up here, right here, I moved this around. C is the third. C is the third in the C shape, just like, so the bottom strings are just like the guitar. C is the third. Okay, in the cages.